last week, Angel shared Puerto Rican proverbs. I don't have any Puerto Rican proverbs, but I do have my dad, so he's going to share some wisdom with us this morning. So I guess I had the other thing, I'm just a little preface about him. He is a granddad, or a dad to 3 boys, a granddad to 10 grandkids. He has 8 great-grandchildren. He has 9 on the way in September, and then the 10th on the way in October. Now, that 10th one I know about. That is my grandbaby, all right, my grandson. Yeah. That's the child of our daughter Jordan, for some of you that know Jordan and her husband Zach, and so we're really looking forward to that. I'm sure you'll hear more about that in the future. So with that, I want to ask my dad, one of the questions was, what things did your dad pass down in wisdom to you that kind of resonated with you?
Well, and we talked about this one. One of the things my dad passed along to me is, don't use alcohol. Why did he do that? Because his dad was an alcoholic. And my dad's mother died, and my dad was given to his grandparents when he was 7. So my dad didn't have a lot of use for alcohol because of what it did. We had I was raised on a farm. We had a 300-acre dairy farm in Pennsylvania. And one of the hired men that my dad used a lot was an alcoholic. And so I saw what that does, and my dad pressed that in. The other thing I saw was, and you knew my dad, kindness. We had a lot of animals. We had chickens and pigs and cows, and he was kind to those because that was our bread and butter. No pun intended, but he took value in the animals, and he treated them well. And that was, as any worker on the farm or myself, you treated those animals well. But he also treated the neighbors well. And if their neighbor needed something, we were there. And up until Dad's dying day, and my wife, we were talking about this last night, he was kind. And do you,
Absolutely.
You remember him about that. He was kind to my mother. My mother was bedridden for a few months with Parkinson's. And he prided himself in the fact that she did not have any bed sores. He took care. This is where you watch what your parents do. It isn't, they're not shouting at you. You know, my ears are. Yeah. But I watched what my dad did for my mother and how he took care of her. So when my dad reaches a certain age and he's alone, we invited him to come and live with us. And he lived with us for 6 years. And my wife, this is not her father, it's mine. But he was a benediction to our home. And you would
absolutely.
say that.
Yeah.
You would say that. My dad, I'm getting very close to the age of where my dad was writing this. So Reveille's at 87. Well, here I am at 87. It's still quite. My dad wrote a lot of poetry in his time that he spent with us, and he was in his room. He watched the ball games, and Chad, my youngest son, and the dog would be there on his bed sleeping, and Dad's watching the ball game. Well, here I'm at 87 and still quite able to see, so I'll take my place by my easy chair and indulge in a long reverie. I remember the time we arose at 5 and worked till 7 or 9. The cows were milked first, chickens and swine were fed, horses hitched up to the plow, and the day began on the line. An hour off for dinner and rest and a cold drink of switchy. I don't know what that was. Oh, that was something sublime. And then back to work to the evening, for it was just one day at a time. But now things are different. We grab a bite in the morning, we just get in the traffic line and fervently pray to get to the office on time. But if we make it without a crunch, it might be to McDonald's for lunch. Well, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I really don't know which way is best. So I'll just sit in my rocking chair and enjoy the things I have left. I enjoy reading my Bible and tales of the old-fashioned West, and glad I don't make any choices, but just live one day at a time. My dad lived with us 6 years, died in our home. On reaching 88, well, here I sat by the window, having reached the young age of 88, still waiting for the window to open and to be ushered inside the gate. There still will be no pain or sighing, for the old things have passed away, and the joys of all the tomorrows will be sufficient for all the problems of today. So I'm thankful that I still look upward and rejoice in the things to be had, for the good will ever be present, and I can forget all the bad. My dad was an epitome of kindness. He was the epitome of taking care of my mother. He was the epitome of showing us how to die. And that, to me, was a great gift.
So now the grandchildren. What are some of the couple of things maybe that you want to pass to your grandchildren, and how do you how to do that? Because you're relying on us to pass some of that, but then there's some things that you maybe need to.
Well, I've spent some time with some grandsons that are not just walking necessarily the way we would like, but I keep telling them, Mame, we love you. We love you. And whatever happens, we're here for you. And I think that there's a place in grandparents that they can fight and argue with their parents, but there's a love that passes on. And we do that with Zach and Jordan. I mean, we love those kids, and Mitchell. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming up and doing that.
You're welcome.
So I appreciate the thoughts.